bossing, skilling, guides. Hey guys, what is up? It is Scuzzy, and welcome to another mining and smithing design documents where I read it and give a couple of thoughts while I'm reading it. I have read over it just before, starting this, so I kind of understand what's going on, so I'll be able to explain things as I go. As always, this design is experimental and subject to playtesting. They will change it if it sucks. So here we have smithing basic mechanics, and the way I went around this this series is kind of weird, and I apologize for that. I should have done the basic stuff first, but I really wanted to just look at the higher tier stuff. It was much more intriguing. But as I read this today, this stuff is just as intriguing. So I hope you stay for the whole video, and I hope that it's understandable the way I read it. So we have the summary. Smithing works largely the same as before the rework. Ore is smelted into bars, which are then made into usable equipment. The major changes are ore and bars can now be used directly from the bank, which when I read that I was like, what? That's kind of weird, but it does explain it down and below when we go further. Items take longer to make. Items can be produced at a variety of quality levels, and items of the highest quality can be handed in for experience. We have some updates that were given from feedback. Fine items must now be smithed into presentation items before being handed in, and change the armor bar requirements so that they sum to 20 rather than 22. So we have feedback. Lots of people were disappointed with the unrealistic bar quantities for weapons, considering a mechanic where a special form of Ethereum is a rare drop from mining, and this is needed for making weapons. This adds extra items to keep track and complexity to the skill, so he's not sure entirely if he's convinced that that it's worth it for that. So we have basic process. A player starts smithing by clicking on an anvil. This opens the smithing interface. If they don't have the resources to make a new smithing interface, it will open the regular Make X window. Hopefully they can make a nice, new, clean, new smithing interface. That'd be pretty cool. From here, the player simply chooses the item they want to make from the options available to them. Items will typically take significantly longer to make than they currently do, but otherwise the process is unchanged. The length of time taken to make an item scales with the number of bars that it requires, so that high bar items are no longer faster experience per hour, which is interesting, but as he's put a lot of thought into this, and it really does make sense. So ores and bars can be smelted and used directly from the bank. This simplifies inventory management to an extent, but a new mechanic, the forge, detailed in an upcoming document, which I don't believe is there yet, but we will definitely be looking at it once it comes up, will introduce a new system that encourages but doesn't require active gameplay, and that does not depend on the exact distance between the bank and the anvil. The number of bars needed to make each item type have been changed to better reflect their value to the player. This is irrelevant when training, but it matters when making expensive, high-level items for actual use. The armor pieces in particular roughly correspond to their relative contribution to the player's total amount. The new bar requirements are as follows. So now it says the item is dagger/offhand, but I'm not sure if that is dagger and offhand, or if it's dagger or offhand. Usually the slash means or, so I'm just going to say each one requires 10 bars, so it would be 20 for the offhand and main hand, which makes sense. Then you have the hatchet, mace, offhand, all this sort of stuff. And two-handed sword costs 20 bars, which is a lot of bars, by the way. Helm is only 5. Full helm is 5. Square shield and kite shield are both 10. Plate legs and plate skirt 5. Chain body, plate body, both 6. And then gauntlets and boots are 2. Now, I looked at this and I was like, wait, chain bodies usually take 3 and plate bodies take 5, but they have done something that was interesting. If I'll just read here, items like chain bodies, non-full helms, and so on are legacy items that won't be added to the new tier 60 plus items. Their stats will be fixed so that they're exactly as good as the standard item in that slot. So chain bodies are going to be the exact same thing as plate bodies. They just didn't want to have, it's basically just a cosmetic look. So, and they'll only really exist as legacy cosmetic options for that slot at low tier, like how plate skirts work. The alternative is removing them entirely, which would turn them into tradable rares, which we don't want a bronze chain body to be a rare. So I think that's a good way to look at that. So we have, next topic is upgrading items. A regular bronze sword, rune plate body, and so on are considered a base item in the rework. Base items can be upgraded by doing more smithing work on them. Upgraded items have an item level 1 higher for each time they've been upgraded, but the requirements to use them don't change. For example, a rune sword has an item level of 47, which is weird. Does it actually? I don't know. But a rune sword plus 2 has an item level of 49. You upgrade an item in exactly the same way as creating an item. A recipe accessible through the skilling interface requires the correct materials and outputs the upgraded item. The materials required for an upgraded item are the base item and as many bars as were required to make the base item. For example, an iron sword requires 10 iron bars to make, and an upgraded iron sword requires 1 iron sword, and 10 iron bars to make. At higher tiers, items can be upgraded more than once, and there's a table down. Once we get to it, there's a table for it. The number of times the item can be upgraded is half the tier rounded down. Each time an item is upgraded, the number of materials required doubles. For example, a rune sword can be upgraded 3 times, making a base rune sword require 10 rune bars. Upgrading to a rune sword plus 1 requires 1 rune sword and 10 rune bars. Upgrading the rune sword plus 1 to a rune sword plus 2 requires 1 rune this is like a tongue twister, 1 rune sword plus 1 and 20 rune bars. Upgrading the rune sword plus 2 to a rune sword plus 3, or I guess this would be a fine rune sword, maybe, I don't know, to a rune sword plus 3 requires 1 rune sword plus 2 and 40 rune bars. In each case, the amount of experience is equal to the bars used, not including the sword. So the first upgrade you'll get 10, equivalent to 10 rune bars. The second one you'll get equivalent to 20 rune bars, and the third one you get equivalent to 40 rune bars. The catch is the amount of time taken is the same as it took to create the base item. That means that upgrading items is faster experience per hour than making base items. There is also a final bonus for handing in, see you later section, which makes upgrading better experience overall. Now we get to fine items. An item which has been upgraded to the best upgrade level available for that tier is a fine item. Yeah, you bet it is. All upgraded items are tradable, but only base items and fine items can be traded on the GE. So what they mean by that is you can trade another player, but you can't actually sell it on the GE. This keeps the amount of items on the GE down to a manageable level. This is definitely subject to change, but it seems like the best compromise, and I don't think you should change that. Otherwise, you're going to have thousands of different types of rune items on the GE, and that's going to be really it's just going to be cluttered. So handing in fine items, and only fine items can be handed in to master smiths for extra experience. This provides an immediate sync for smithed items. Before they can be handed in, fine items must be smithed into presentation items first. This process only requires the fine item and takes about as long as the base item of the same tier took to make. The presentation item is untradeable and can then be handed in for experience. The amount of experience given is equivalent to half the total of number of bars needed to make the fine item. See later section, example experience for actual bars. So if an item took 320 bars to make, it will give you equivalent to 160 bars for the fine item. The thing is with this, you can actually buy it from the GE, so you can sort of buy experience with GP and do a lot less work, whereas some people can make those items for you and actually make money off of it. So it's going to be an expensive way to train, but faster experience. Sort of like what we see with buyables now, but also you can actually make money from the skills. So it's actually really, really cool. It's going to have its own economy, which is really nice. 3 NPCs will accept items from the player: Martin Steelweaver in Berthorpe, Sock in the Artisan's Workshop, and Lady Traherne in Prifddinas. Presentation items are untradeable, and therefore the player must do the smithing work themselves. So at least they have to do something themselves instead of just buying it on the GE and then instantly getting experience. That would be ridiculous. So they do not have to have made the fine item used to make the presentation item, and these can be bought from the GE. This creates an internal economy in the smithing skill and allows for fast and slow, like I said earlier, slow training methods at appropriate cost. Because handing in presentation items will be the fastest experience per hour by far, it will also be the most expensive. This will create a market for fine items which poorer smiths can take advantage of in exchange for slower experience rates. On the assumption that we are not able to effectively rework the Artisan's Workshop at the same time as the main rework, handing in presentation items to any of the 3 NPCs will also award Artisan's Workshop respect points. Now, it says to any NPC, but I think it means any of the 3 NPCs. I'm not sure, though. So next we have item tiers and stats. Smithing requirement is the smithing level required to make the items, and this is talking about the table coming up. Combat requirement is the attack or defense level required to wear the items. Upgrades, the number of times these items can be upgraded. Base item level is the item level of the base items in their tier, and then fine item level is the item level of the fine items in the tier, which corresponds to the combat power. So when you say something like a tier 90 weapon, it means that that's the combat power. So this is here. We have bronze. It only requires level 1, so anybody can do it. Combat requirement 1, so you can do it straight off of the boat. Base item level 1, and then upgrade 0. You can't upgrade bronze, apparently. And then what you do is you make it into a fine item level, I guess. I don't know. Iron is 10, steel is 20, etc., etc. But when you get to Dracarlith, it's 60 smithing requirement, 60 combat requirement, but you start at a base item level of 57, and I think they do this because of the number of upgrades, and you want to get to tier 60. And then you have Necronium, which is 70, and then you start at 61. You can upgrade it 4 times and get to 65. Invictum is 80. You start at 71 for the base. For as far as like a tier goes, like you make the item, it's a tier 71. Then you upgrade it and it gets to tier 75, and then you have Ethereum, which requires 90 smithing and also 90 mining to mine it, but this is strictly the smithing aspect. It requires 90 combat to wield it, but you only get 80 stats until you upgrade it 5 times, and then you get a fine item level of 85. So it's, it's Ethereum, it's tier 80 when it starts. You get to tier 85, but it requires 90. I don't know if that makes sense, but the reason why it's like this is because you'll be able to upgrade it with Masterwork smithing. We talked about that in a couple of design documents ago, where you can actually upgrade it, and then even further you can upgrade it to tier 92 with energized armor. So that's that table. This is an example of the materials and experience for crafting a fine Ethereum sword. These numbers have not been properly balanced against live experience rates. They are not final or even very sensible. They just show the relative progression of experience throughout the upgrade process. So I don't know if that means everything on this table is weird, except for maybe the materials and the results, like the time. I don't know if this is going to be actual time, and I'm definitely sure this is not going to be the actual XP. But So this is just the process. So the materials to make 1 bar is 1 ore and 1 secondary. So it's not just the ore. You need to have a secondary, which I don't know if that's going to be coal or if that's going to be something else. I don't know if they specified that. If you do know what the secondary is, then let me know in the comments. But once you get 1 bar, you can use 10 bars for a rune sword, or not rune sword, an Ethereum sword, sorry. And that will approximately, quote unquote, take 200 seconds. And you get 1,000 experience, which is not very much. But then you have 1 sword and 10 bars to make the 1 sword plus 1. Then you have 1 sword plus 1 plus 20 bars to make the 2, 40 bars to make the 3. But notice that it all takes 200 seconds, so you're getting 1,000 experience in 200 seconds here, and then 2,000 in 200 seconds, 4,200 seconds. And then if you go down here, you have 80 bars, and then 160 bars, and then you finally have your 1 fine Ethereum sword. And then you do another 200 seconds to get your last bit of experience, and you hand this one in. So once you have that, so a total of 320 Ethereum bars. It will take you 23 minutes and 20 seconds, which excludes smelting, and then you'll get 48,000 experience, excludes smelting. But this, I don't know if that's going to be true, or if the time's even going to be true. But if you think about it, 1 sword is going to take a third of an hour, a little bit more than a third of an hour. So you can only make like 2.5 of these every hour. So it's definitely going to take a lot more time. 2.5 hours, you know, that's going to be crazy. Or not 2.5 hours, sorry. 1/3 of an hour to make just 1 of these. So this is the last bit here. Why not work orders? So I guess originally they were going to have work orders, but the previous design used work orders for training. In this version of the design, the ability to upgrade and hand in work orders effectively replaces this. So this is like just another version of that, kind of. The key differences are that the player is making actual items rather than abstracted items like protein bars, which will hopefully reinforce the key mechanics of the smithing skill better. And I think this is an amazing way to go. So if during playtesting we feel like the skill needs more structure, a system analogous work orders where you have to make and or hand in specific items could be implemented relatively easily to add variety and small goals to work towards. And that is the end of the document. So I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you got something out of this. I know that a lot of people are not happy about the smithing and mining rework, but this is going to be amazing. What they've done with invention, totally awesome for the economy. What they're going to do with this, totally awesome. They're fixing the game, people. Like, I don't know if you understand how much they're actually fixing the game. Like, when the game was first made, this was bound to happen. Items would flood into the game, and you wouldn't be able to take the items out of the game. If you did take the items out of the game for GP, you'll have an excess of GP, which will devalue other items. And inflation and deflation, it's bound to happen in any society where you don't have, you know, like, I don't want to get into too many details, but the universe that we live in, it's just shifting energy from one type of energy to another type of energy, and there's a balance there. And in the game world, there was not a balance there between the items, the GP, and then the flood of each. And this essentially just pretty much balances the game. So when they say they're doing balancing work here, they are actually doing balancing work that will actually help the game. Like, this is going to make the game flourish. Like, you may not want it right now, but you will. I don't know if you'll learn to love it, but it's something that the game definitely needs, and I'm actually excited about it. So I hope you enjoyed. I hope you're excited about it. If you're not, let me know in the comments, and you know, maybe we can get them to rework a couple of different things. But as far as it is now, dude, like, I'm ridiculously happy about this. I would definitely be doing this even at max experience. I may even make a new account and just do smithing and mining only on that account. Anyways, so I'm gonna leave it there, and I will see you tomorrow for another video. Peace. Thank you so much for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you have a great day. Follow me on social media and subscribe for more. Peace.
Lions roaring in the morning sun, searching for a longer day.